Sam said, check yourself. Among other things. It's podcast time. I already warned Sam I've been in the mood today, and so unfortunately he's going to have to hear it. But we're going to get some help from Jennifer Owen here in a little bit. She is on her way. She's going to sit down, and we're going to talk some vouchers and some other school board stuff. She is running, and she automatically wins points to me because she is optioning to avoid the title of party affiliation, and I love it. Anyway, we'll talk about that with her as well as whatever else comes up like we've been doing. So anyway, we're almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If you guys don't already do it, you should subscribe to the Compass Point podcast. I produce that for the Compass Knox News team, and I was a very special guest on their episode today talking about weed. So if you're interested in what's going on in this new weed, or not the new weed laws, but the changes in it, I get a little bit more serious on that conversation with them. So you can check that out, Compass Point's podcast on all your favorite podcast providers right next to us. Like, share, friend, follow us. Like, share, friend, follow them. Tell your friends about us. Share the news. You know, that's what we're trying to do. Anyway, we're going to do a podcast, and here we go. I'm off the steroids.
Yay.
Having a little bit of withdrawal symptoms.
Oh, no.
So I'm going to drink my way through it.
Anti-raging.
I think like my balls are growing back again or shrinking again, I don't know, whatever it happens after you take steroids.
Start growing a little bit more.
Oh, God. Maybe I should call Jennifer and tell her not to go. Yeah, so I've been talking to Jennifer Owens on and off, trying to get her to do a show. We teased doing a voucher conversation for a while now, and Jennifer's one who often will email me after a show to correct something stupid I said, and or help illuminate maybe something I'm not completely explaining correctly. And you've heard me reference her often as a valid source. And to be fair, and I think she would agree, is that she is quite a significant anti-voucher advocate. That has always been her stance on it. She believes that public schools are the right answer, and that we need to fund the public schools and do all that stuff, whatever. And so, and I'm not a pro-voucher, as I've argued many times, but I'm pro talking about alternates to the way we're doing things, because the way we're doing things is, I would argue, is failing. And I think that she would agree, as would you and some other people. So she's on her way. We're going to pause, and she's going to sit in for probably half hour, 45. And then, so it's going to be a weird format show today, but that's what we're going to do. So anyway, now that I got the intro after the intro out of the way, what's up, buddy?
Hey.
How you been?
I've been okay.
Anything new and exciting you want to bring to my attention?
Nothing new and exciting.
My Packers made the playoffs. I got a playoff game. AC's Cowboys on Sunday. So here's hoping that Dallas chokes like they do all the time. So Saban retired. We'll get the sports news out of the way on the front end. How's that?
Bill Belichick's gone.
Belichick's gone. So we got some major shifts in the legacy landscape and some different avenues of football, and it's fun and exciting. I appreciate. Now, I understand that they were in the national championship run and all that kind of stuff, but I appreciate that Saban finished the season. True. How many coaches and players and all that kind of stuff and the way college ball is right now. Now, he retired and didn't get signed away to another college or something. But like, how many coaches didn't go to their bowl game because they got hired by a different school and no longer work there? And that's one of those things that really bums me out. And I get it. And the free market person to me is like, yeah, do whatever you want, work wherever you want, whenever you want to work there. That's your thing. This is a feels thing to me more than it is a philosophical hard truth, I suppose, is the best way I could think of to say it. So that's what's going on in the greater sports world. Knox County schools, because they have to figure out a way to get me pissed off week in and week out. They've just nailed it. Like I almost feel like there's somebody there that is trying. And we'll talk about this more with Jennifer when she gets here. But this has been the weirdest. Do you ever recall getting out of school for anything so ridiculous as wind? Like,
I mean, not specifically just wind, but
I'm not even going to argue that like global warming isn't a thing or any of that kind of stuff. And I'm not even going to try to argue that, we've had more specifically extreme weather recently in the last few years than 20 years ago when we were in school. I will acknowledge that as a general truth. But we certainly had, here and there, through the years, random weather events that were pretty extreme versions of whatever those weather events. But the idea that we were out of school today, I can kind of get behind, especially after the shit show that was Tuesday, Wednesday. Tuesday, Wednesday.
Was it a shit show?
Yeah. Like, they decided at like 11:45 that they were letting the kids out early on Tuesday. For the wind, for the windiness that was Tuesday. And it was literally, I think I got the text at 12:15, 12:30. Elementary school pickups at 1, high school, middle schools at 1:30. Now, granted, I am 100% super fortunate that between my wife and I and my lack of a real job and her lack of a real job, it didn't affect us whatsoever as far as any real stress in having to figure out how to make sure our kids got home from school.
All right.
You know, it was no issue in my household. And I understand that like, I appreciate that is a feature to me that most people aren't afforded. Like, that is something that most people are not in the same position at. Like, stories of, you know, especially there was one story story that was told on one of the Facebook groups that I follow about. It's like, you know, got a kid, they had a special needs kid. And so it was like, you know, we can't just, you know, like, grandma is a working option sometimes or whatever, but it's like, for the most part, like, this is a kid that needs, you know, like a very specific set of care, stuff like that people need to know how to do it. So it can't be just like, hey, neighbor, can you help me out for a couple hours? It's like, there's a very short list of people who are eligible to help this family out situationally. You know, had I still been working my day job, you know, it would have been all on the wife to make sure she could take care of everything. And again, we're in a fortunate position of that, but that's not most families anymore. Most families are both working.
Right.
You know, and it goes back to a bunch of different conversations we've had about the relationship of schools and working parents. That's part of the thing. That's kind of part of the benefit of a school system to parents, is that you have a built-in babysitting program. But, like, again, a 30-minute heads up and a shortened release time and all that kind of crazy stuff. And so, like, one of the things that was problematic, and this is an inconvenience and I shouldn't complain about it, I guess, but one of the things that was problematic is that, like, all the signage, the slow traffic, the crossing guards weren't available because they were still at the elementary schools because they squeezed the time down.
Right.
And so, like, all the things that help try to move the pick-up, drop-off thing in and out of the schools wasn't set up right. At Rocky Hill, at least, there were kids. Like, I got the middle schooler and got back, and there were kids still waiting on the bus to come get them to drop them off because the bus drivers weren't ready, obviously, to get to their schools. And so that means if there's an elementary school group that hadn't been picked up yet, that driver has to go run that route and probably has a middle or high school route that they got to go to too. Right. So it is likely that there are a bunch of kids who rode the bus more or less at the same time they were riding the bus anyway. And the point was that it was too windy that the buses might blow over. That was the concern. You know, and so that all goes down Tuesday. And then, well, this whatever weather thing's still going through. And so we opened 2 hours late Wednesday. And then we're out of school Friday all day. And the thing about Tuesday specifically that bothered me about it is nothing changed. Like, this was all, like, that's why the Friday one is less upsetting to me. Like, Knox County Schools came out in a statement and said that they got a weather alert from the Morristown National Weather Center or whatever that they're signed up for or whatever at 11:16 that was doing this thing. And then I guess it was News Sentinel or somebody asked the Weather Center about it, and they said, yeah, we do one every hour. And that was the same one from 10:15. That was the same one from 9:15. It was the same weather alert that we have a strong wind advisory from in these locations for this period of time. Right. It didn't change. It was just the same alert. You know, it's like NPR's, you know, their little news break on the hour. Right. It's the same thing. But for some reason, that changed the mind of Knox County Schools and decided to do it. That was the issue with that one to me.
Maybe because they hadn't canceled it yet. Because usually they give a time frame, like, you know, from until this time, you know, you're under a watch or you're under a warning.
The way I read the quote from the National Weather Service spokesperson, or whatever it was, I don't remember the specifics of the weather alert that they were putting out. It's like we put out the same one on the hour that said the wind advisory was from this time to this time. Yeah. And so it was like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. We put that out at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., like over. They just repeatedly put it out over and over and over again. And so that's the thing. It's like, so nothing changed except Knox County Schools changed their mind. And so that's what kind of, like, again, like, I don't, at least to me locally in our house, in our yard, and where I was, it was a little bit rough for a minute there. I actually went out and had to run to the shop for something, and I was like, ooh, I want to get home real quick before this gets real crazy. Yeah. And it never really got real crazy in my neck of the woods. I understand that Knox County is a big place. there are parts and pieces, and the school system has to care about all of them.
Yeah, I definitely dodged some branches on the way home.
Yeah, and so there's definitely some weather happening. But I don't know. It was just a...
So I was thinking they were probably monitoring it, and they saw that it was still coming at us because a lot of storm fronts come through and hit the plateau. And
they break up or split or turn left when they didn't expect them to.
Right.
And so that was that. And
I'd say they want to call off school as like a last resort type thing.
As my second official apology to Mr. Aaron Velasquez from WBAR, I have nothing against you personally. I just have something against the company you work for. He had gone onto the speak group looking for parents that wanted to talk about the struggles they had with these weather issues and daycare and stuff like that.
Right.
And I was kind of a dick, but that's what I do. But basically, I was like, a bunch of people commented and talked about it and stuff. And then later on in the comments, he had commented, "Thanks everybody. I think I know what I'm going to do in my story." It's which I said, as if you didn't already know what the headline was. Here, I'll write it for you. Knox County canceled school. Parents struggle to find daycare. Done. And then Amanda Collins is like, I just want to check. Do you know this guy personally? Are you just teasing around, or you were just being a dick? And I was like, I apologize. This wasn't a jab at you, Aaron. This was actually a jab at WBIR because I would assume that they already wrote your story for you.
Yeah.
So it was about Tegna, more than it was about you, Aaron. So I apologize, Aaron. I know you're new to the team, and so you have time to get beaten down into whatever they make you into. But in that argument, I realized some things with some other parents, because basically my initial take on it when I said, I was like, Aaron, you can talk to me if you want to, but let's talk about the real elephant in the room, is that many families, and I said the word many families, primary function out of the school system is daycare. And so this is a big deal. And then I had some people coming back and forth. It's like, no, it's not the only function. I was like, I didn't say it was the only function, but I said that's many parents' primary function. It's their number one need for the school system. And then somebody, anyway, so it was going back and forth. So I guess what I got to in some different discussions with this is why I like to have this banter, even though it's toxic or whatever, is I got to a thought that I think kind of surmises a lot of my philosophy with government. Is we can agree, I can agree in principle that a school system is a good thing. I'm down with it. I get it. It's a communal good. Like when Matt Shears was in here and he was doing that park example, this is something that is a public good and that the public should pay for. And so with taxes, we pay for it because this is a public good. It's like, I agree in the principle of that, but the execution is always what seems to be the problem when we get into public good conversations, to me. And it's like, and so one of the things, and then when it rolls into the politics of it, especially the left thinks that more government is the solution to bad government. And I have a fundamental issue with that thought process. And I think that's a core tenet of mine that all of my little different arguments that I like to throw out all the time. I think that's one of the things that I'm always going to come back to is more government is not going to fix corrupt government. And if we acknowledge that corrupt government is the problem, then I think the real solution is less. And I think that's a fairly universal take for me.
Okay.
I think if we were going back into a bunch of the different arguments and weird stances I've taken over time, I think that's a unifying factor across the board.
Okay.
I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, I'm trying to have a conversation. I'm not trying to tell you. I'm just trying to tell you what I think. Do you think that's crazy? Am I weird?
I don't think you're crazy. I just, I don't. I guess I don't see how lessening the government would fix that quote unquote corruption, because it's the people themselves that end up being part of the corruption. Yay. Right.
It's the people that are corrupted. Yes.
All right.
People are corruptible. And so not giving people the authority to do things with their corruptibility is, I think, is my take on the fix.
So
like our Department of Ag situation right now that I've been complaining about would be an example. What? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
You started and I interrupted. And
I don't even remember now.
Okay. I didn't mean to cut you off. But that's, I think that's, I kind of know one of your takes is going to be,
it sounds like a fix in theory, but I don't see how it fixes the ills of society.
I don't know that it does, like in a universal sense. Because I mean, there's still going to be bad actors no matter how we play it. There's going to be people taking advantage of other people.
Right. It's like a classroom with some rowdy kids. You're like, we should just have less teachers in there. The kids will behave a lot better.
That's a hell of an analogy, buddy. I like that. That's
bring it back to schools.
It's very well played. Well, there's a couple of questions that did immediately come to mind on that. It's like, well, who is supposed to be responsible for these kids? And what I don't know. I like the analogy. I do. That really, damn, that's good, bro.
Is that good?
It's really good.
Sweet.
I like that. All right, moving on. What else is new? Like I got nothing. I'm gonna have to put some thought into that. That was a very good analogy that I need to think about. I still think I'm right, but I don't have a good argument for it right now, so I'm gonna put that on the back burner.
I thought I saw something else locally that was going on.
Planning Commission or the Knox County Growth Plan things made some changes and stuff like that. What else? I don't know. There's a lot of counties.
Yeah, I thought they reduced some of like the size of, I guess, what they were going to try to hold on to as like rural areas of Knox County.
I mean,
so I said it went something from like 16 square acres down to like 14,000 square acres or something.
I had a thought when the Compass guys were doing their show on this whole growth thing that we keep going back and forth on, of trying to put together a round table that basically says, a growth round table, not in the sense of like what the policy is or what the policy should be coming, or anything like that, but that like some like war games, for lack of a better word, on growth issues. Like, they always talk about like Pentagon did war games on what would happen if we put boots on the ground in Israel, and it's like, well, then Iran would react this way. They do all those things. They talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
They game out what could possibly happen. Like, I would like to put a group together of well-informed people on growth, on real estate, on development, on long-term benefits of having rural spaces near urban spaces and X, Y, and Z. Just like a handful of people who know their shit on it, and have a real conversation about not my stupid question of do we really want growth or not, but what happens if we don't have a good plan in place, or a plan in place for that matter? What happens if? Because one of the things is apparently the state mandates that we have a growth plan by county. They don't mandate anything particular about it. You just have to have one.
They mandate that we're at least pretending to look at it and think about it in case it does or does not happen.
I don't know. I don't know exactly that part of it. But anyway, Jennifer's here. Time out. 3, 2, 1, break. All right, Jennifer Owens here, everybody. Like I previewed, I gave her the permission to not have to talk about what wind does to schools, because we already chatted a little bit about it. One, I'd like to thank you just for stopping by because we're having a good time. But two, you've been my favorite voucher person to discuss things with because I know you know what you're actually talking about. I always go back to one of the things that's most frustrating to me in the voucher conversation is we all seem to neglect the fact that it doesn't matter why I take my kids out of schools.
Right.
Knox County Schools loses that money. Now, it's not equatable. There's all sorts of parts and pieces of that. I get it. But it's one of those that it's just we blow by. And because I have a really hard time with the argument of we're taking money from schools. The current voucher bill and the way it's written, at least for now, isn't taking money from schools officially. It's a separate fund or whatever, but we all assume that over time they're going to reduce, or when the reduction of students in the public schools happens, then they will reduce the amount they're kicking in and stuff like that, which gets really confusing and in the weeds, and I need Ron on for some of that, even though he doesn't get it either, even though that's his job, but not that it's his fault. It's just that it's that ridiculously complicated. And so I don't know where to start. Like, I think one of the things we were talking about in trying to get this show together is that we're kind of waiting. We got till the end of the month before the state will, before whomever will officially introduce the bill with the official language of how this is going to work, as opposed to the trial version or whatever that's going on in Memphis right now. But my kind of reply to you is like, there's two ways to talk about it. We can talk about the specific, or we can talk about the broader premise. And I think one of the things to me that I'm struggling with as a parent and as a business owner is, or maybe just as an old man, maybe there's a better way to say it, is I am not particularly happy with what our school systems are producing. And I don't mean to say that as Knox County specifically. I mean, as far as the United States school system at large, seems to be a little bit lacking. And even in some of the metrics that we use, comparing ourselves to other states, other nations, and stuff like that, we are not doing a great job educating our kids, period.
Okay, so let's start with that piece, because what we're doing to educate our kids, if we talk to parents, let's say, at their individual schools, parents are usually happy with their individual schools. They feel like their individual schools are doing really well. It's the metrics that we're using that people tend to ask why scores are so low, or
right,
why they're different.
That's one of the things I like about you a lot is that you are not a big standardized test person, which I'm not either.
And really, it's set up. It's set up to give a false narrative, because it's not anything accurate. And we could take the third grade retention bill, for example, or, well, I guess law. Those third grade scores are percentiles. So even, let's say that every child in third grade in Knox County was reading at a 7th grade level, they would still retain half of them, because half of them are below that 50th percentile. So it's not based on something that says you have to be reading this well to be considered on grade level. It's a percentile score compared to everybody else. And that's just a ridiculous way to talk about achievement. So there's that. And then we also look at other states. They're not using the same test. So if we're comparing state to state, test to test,
Sam loves to get me on this. What is it?
What
is it? It's not like a fair comparison where you say it all that. Oh, you're killing me. Fine. It's not apples to apples.
Oh.
God, it was right there, right in front of your face. The door was open. I told you the Friday shows are different.
And then we go and look at other countries, and we're looking at everybody taking the test, the same test. Well, everybody. Knox County takes the same test if they're in public schools, and then we compare that internationally, and lots of countries aren't testing all of their students. They're testing only their top students, only their students who have continued in school or who have been put in that track, in a scholar track kind of thing.
I did not know that subset. That's an interesting little...
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly going to skew some data.
So if you're looking at countries that don't have the same kind of public education...
I'll be honest, my anecdotal metrics that I use have nothing to do with scores or testing.
Okay.
Especially here lately, the 25 and under set of employees that I've carried for the last year have been awful. I don't even know how to word it. Like, not 100% of them, but as a percentage,
awful in what way?
They're just one of my favorite ones to make fun of, and this has been once for 10 years now, is like I had a lady that worked for me. Lady's an overstatement. She was 19 at the time, because this is when vape was 18 plus and blah blah blah. Just to get that caveat out of the way. Don't know how to write a check. Don't know, like, this is a foreign language to them, not write a check. But it's not really even that. That's just a fun joke one that I like to make, because that's not the first time I've had that happen, like with 4 different employees over the years. This is old, such an old manio to say, but like, there is an entitlement level with the kids that I've dealt with in the old enough to legally work for me bracket under 25. Is that there is like the idea that I get so crazy about you being on time to work. Like, what? That's crazy. And like, it's just like stuff that, again, I feel should be common sense, normal things. Like, you were at work when I asked you to clean some things. Like, hey, can you go sweep the floor? Don't know how to work a broom, for lack of a better word. And these are kids that have graduated from schools. I don't know if they're Knox County schools. I could go back and look at some applications, because that's part of our process. But, I mean, I don't know how else to explain that. Like, I like that. That is part of where I base my feel on what I would argue is where I see our schools lacking. And again, I don't know. Some of them might have been private school kids. It's not necessarily a public-private conversation. It's I don't understand what we're doing with our students in the grand scheme of things. I do appreciate that Risewick's new kind of plan at least has some clear direction of military, college, trade school. Like that is at least a functional thing to look at. I still don't know what it means per se, but at least it has at least it's a logical, you could check that box. You graduated from a Knox County school, you got admitted to a college, you got admitted to a trade school. Not that the standards to get in the military are particularly high, so it's a good backup plan for everybody, I guess.
So when you learned to write a check, did you learn that in school?
I believe so.
I didn't, I don't think. I think our economics class covered it vaguely, but my parents taught me how to write a check.
I mean, again, I'm not saying that's and maybe that's a way that I should work on my phrasing. I'm being a little bit too holding account the schools a little too much to what we as societally are teaching our kids. Maybe would be a better way for me to word these things. But again, I think that's, especially from the left side, that's part of the argument for the importance of schools, is that the schools are going to teach them kids these things that they know whether their parents are cool with it or not. And, I go back and forth as a parent on how I feel about that stance. I get it, because there is some things that I think that there are people out there that should learn that their parents are going to tell them no. And I'm not sure that that's fair. It's certainly not fair to the kids, that they don't get a chance to experience some levels of knowledge because their parents are too close-minded about X, Y, or Z. That sucks. But again, I know I'm punching a ton into education that isn't just schools. I get that, but I don't know. Like I'm not particularly happy with either of my schools right now. I've not been particularly happy with the school system at large the whole time we've been in it. Part of my problem is I don't know how much or good of any other options I have are anyway. And at the end of the day, with my bad taste in my mouth, for lack of a better word, I've taken it upon myself on particular sub issues to teach my kids these things or deal with it. I don't know, what sex ed do we do anymore? We were having this conversation a couple weeks ago. Do we do any sex ed anymore?
It is not a lot, and that's not. I mean,
we're all over the map.
That's a function of our legislature.
Friday night show.
I think 7th or 8th grade was when I took was part of the health class in school.
I remember seeing some pictures of some gross dicks and whatnot. I recall that in Bearden High School.
Yeah, and then again in high school.
I mean, that's when it's important. That's when you need to be grossed out by that kind of stuff, because that's when you're like, that's all I want in the world right now. I don't care about anything else. And it's like, ooh, that could happen.
No, 7th grade was when it was a good time to introduce that.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad in hindsight, and I don't have a particular issue. And I've had a few of the birds and bees talks when I came with my kids and stuff like that. But there is some value, especially with that, to me. I think there's some value in somebody who isn't dad having that conversation.
Yeah.
At least being part of that conversation, not exclusively dad or exclusively ex. I think it's something. Again, I think the first time I think we had you on the show with Ron, we were talking about how the number one true indicator, which we relearned again with this stupid ABC grade thing, is it's really about the money in the neighborhood around the school. Like, that's all this new grading thing that we got right before Christmas was. Right. It's the schools with Fs have poor neighborhoods around them.
And, if we're in a neighborhood where parents are struggling to make ends meet, if they're working 2 or 3 jobs, then they want to be involved with their children's schools, but they can't while they're working 2 or 3 jobs. And so I think there are a lot of opportunities that aren't necessarily there for the kids. And it's not any fault of their parents that they are having to, do a lot more. And it's not that they don't want to. It's just that the availability is often difficult.
Yeah.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. And again, it's not the fault of the student or the parent. Yeah. I mean, it's not really the fault of the school system. I think that's another one too. I think we, as the state at large, try to use our schools for too much stuff. Yeah. And then we are also cheap with it. It's like, well, if you're going to make it be the everything for anybody under 18 in a municipality, that needs to be funded for it.
And I think that's where the money piece that's supposedly not taken away from schools, that's that money that they're saying is going to be for vouchers. It's not coming from the school funding formula. But it is tax money that is there. It's tax money that is available. It's tax money that could be going into schools, and it's tax money that could be used in
that's
neighborhoods
tax money that
need.
could build us the new damn bypass so we could drive through Knoxville again. It doesn't have to be school money. It could be other stuff that we could spend money on, or it could be less sales tax, for Christ's sake.
And as one of the lowest funded schools in the school districts in the nation, it's really, I'm saying district, state, the whole state. I'm not sure how we can justify taking that public money away from public schools. And it's not. I got to interrupt.
It's not away from public schools, away from public.
It's not in the formula yet. It's like that $1.8 billion that they've got sitting over there. And they're saying, well, we don't need to take any federal money because we've got this $1.8 billion. That money could have been in our schools all this time. That money could have been doing something, but instead it's just been sitting there because they don't want to fund our schools.
Right. Okay. So
that's where I see it taken away.
Right. I don't disagree with the premise abstractly, but I think again, to me, it's important to break that nuance apart.
Yeah.
In that it doesn't matter if you take the kid out, the money's coming out. But if you're looking at it as we have a pool of cash as a state, and some of that cash goes into the schools, and now some of that cash is going into private schools or into X or into Y, that is going into X or into Y could also go into the public schools. And so it's not taking away, but it's adding less than it could.
And maybe since we haven't seen the bill yet, and since they all seem to not know what's in it, even though they've supposedly been working on it all this time, it may be going to students who are already in private schools.
It probably is.
So...
And I would argue, and if you're going to do it, in fairness, that would be the correct way to do it, although it is kind of crappy. And I mean, it just will. But I don't know. I think it was you in one of the meetings was talking about it. That's one of the realities that's kind of hard to swallow here is that we're a decade out before we're going to see any real functional difference if this passes the way we assume it's going to pass.
Yeah.
I mean,
and even
we don't have the public school infrastructure to take on a ton of students, so it's not like 20,000 of the 60,000 Knox County students are all of a sudden going to move into private schools unless one falls out of the sky.
And it kind of comes down to funding two school systems.
Right.
And anytime you're funding two systems that are doing the same thing, it ends up costing you more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would argue, too, that you're arguing a central body in Nashville as part of this whole thing where we could take that central body out of the equation and probably do better that way, too.
Right.
I mean, we've joked about going into books, and not into book banning books, but into textbooks and the craziness that is that funding money circle, whatever you want to call it. And it's like I'm a proud capitalist, for lack of a better word. I understand what economies of scale are. So yeah, if you're buying, I don't know how many students in the state of Tennessee total?
About 1 million.
So if you're buying 1 million books at once, you should probably get a pretty good deal on them. But somehow we're paying more than most people would buy it off the shelves by themselves. Don't know how that economy of scale works backwards. Oh, I do. It's because your government's paying for it. It's always got to be that way. That's one of my things. I don't know. That's one of many of my things. But I don't know. I'm like, I guess my kind of default, and this is a default for me in a lot of politics and government and stuff like that. My default is we got some problems. I think we all agree we got some problems. And at least having an honest discussion, which I don't think is what I think it's what we're having, but I don't think it was happening at large with the voucher right now. I think having an honest discussion about options, even unpopular options, are worth having real discussions about and looking into the viability of whether or not that could contribute positively. Okay, so while I got you, because I just thought about this, we were talking about this last week. Charter schools are funded the same way regular schools are funded.
Sort of, yes.
But like they take a set of students and they get funded per student basically, but it's direct funding from the state in tax dollars. Or not? Is it direct funding from Knox County schools?
It passes the state kicks through Knox County schools. Got it.
So the state kicks in their portion, like as if those students were in the public school system, and then Knox County schools pays that school. Okay. So, what's the point of charter schools? Why don't we just open another school?
Good question.
Like realistic. I mean, like realistic. Like if that, like, because like I get it as an idea, as it's a gap fill, because we certainly are overcrowded in our schools, and this is a third party coming in to help fill a gap. We do it with all sorts of other stuff in government and private sector all the time. Like I get it as a premise, but
is it a gap fill or is it doing exactly the same thing?
But right, and it's like, well, if we're like, do we still have the same controls over it as we do?
No. They say that we do, but we don't. They have their own board. They have their own governing body.
Do they have outside funding coming in to help to assist them?
Sometimes, yes. Usually,
Man, that
yes.
complicates stuff.
Yeah.
Because, I mean...
So like grants and whatnot.
That's essentially a Knox County school. Well, I mean, it's a Knox County school with a really good PTO, I guess.
Right.
So it's a West Knox County school. These are the jokes, people. I think that's crazy. Good on, what was it? That was a Larson thing, getting the playground funding.
Playgrounds, yeah.
I thought that was, I didn't realize, like, that's just a crazy thing to me. Like I mean, I get it. We have a new gym floor and some other stuff. Like I hate our PTO. Like I don't hate our PTO. I just think they buy the stupidest stuff. Like that's the new popular thing is having these digital signs.
Yeah.
Who? And I get it. Part of it's because we're not allowed to spend it on certain things as a PTO. We have to spend it on superfluous. Is that a good word?
I think when you get down to looking at school support organizations trying to support the school, they buy what they are capable of buying. So if you're looking at doing, let's say you wanted to add on to the building, that would be so much money that it wouldn't be possible for a PTO to do it. So a $20,000 or $30,000 digital sign they can do.
Yeah.
But $100,000 for playground is out of reach.
Like we can buy some monkey bars.
I think when I first became a board member, I was talking to one of our PTO presidents and the principal, and they were trying to get money for a swing set. It was going to be $10,000. Yeah. That was just shocking to me.
I have a lot of questions on that. I don't even know where to start. I'll leave it alone. I mean, I think, but I think it's a weird one. I think this goes. I think to me, I think one of the things at play here that I think is an actual reasonable solution, not that our state legislature would ever do it, would be to shrink the state's involvement. Like I think it's one of those things that most people don't think about when they're having the conversation about schools. Knox County schools is a misnomer. It is the state of Tennessee schools,
right?
The Knox County division, yes. Which I guess in the grand scheme of things, everything Knox County that starts with Knox County is state of Tennessee, Knox County division, but everything else has a lot more local control than this one does.
Right.
Everything that goes on, for the most part, on what's the word I'm looking for here, on a substantive basis in schools, and the real things that people really get upset about. That's not a good phrase anymore. People get upset about crazy stuff.
I think the things that matter most to people,
the
biggest things,
right, are
state controlled.
Right, and you know, and we get ourselves caught so often, and this is what turned me on to this whole process. Was COVID stuff, and I was at a county commission meeting, sitting through 6 hours of people yelling about COVID stuff, and I knew before I got there that county commission had zero to do with whatever they were talking about. And so it's our lack of civics knowledge, which that'd be another thing I could see doing better in schools. It'd be great. But
if we had more civics knowledge, then some of our legislators might not be elected.
Well, right. And I mean, and I don't know, you can stay mum on what I'm about to say if you want to. My somewhat tinfoil hat conspiracy theory of the case of what's going on right now is that, and again, I joke with Sam about this all the time, I might be giving too much credit for intelligence to people who don't deserve it, but my super theory on what's going on is that the majority of private schools are ending up going to be faith-based. Those faith-based are ending up going to be Christian, which then is going to long-term turn us into a more Christian-based society, which long-term is going to vote more conservative, which long-term we're going to vote more of their kids and grandkids into the process. I don't know if I believe it or not. Like I said, I don't know if I give them the credit for thinking that long-term.
Oh, I think they're absolutely thinking that long-term.
But I think it's certainly a play to try to make us a more homogeneous state.
What I've seen when people are trying to do things like that is that there's always someone bigger behind it, and there's always a plan B, so that if...
Oh, that's funny with someone who's behind it and a plan B joke. Damn it, Jennifer, that was good. Anyway, sorry. There's always somebody behind it that has a plan B.
Right. So if, let's say, the initial bill or whatever, or policy, whatever it is, doesn't pass, then there's something else that's already been started that somebody doesn't see.
That's my hemp bill right now.
There.
Right. The hemp thing they just did right now is exactly that game. They put it out in front of us, and they got everybody on board. And then as soon as it went to its sub-department inside the Department of Agriculture and all that kind of stuff, a little quiet switch got flipped that all of us who were on board with it didn't see, and it completely dismantled the whole point and why we were on board with it. Right. And now it's in the bureaucratic side, so we have no options. I mean, I've been yelling at who I can about it, but it's already in play.
And that switch had been set up long before.
Sure. That was in the first place.
Nobody saw that coming. Yeah.
Richard Briggs, I'm coming after you, buddy. I mean, we need to talk about this because I can't say you weren't part of this because you were 2 years ago you were totally anti it. Then last year you were on board with this new version of it, and then this new version has a what do they call it?
Caveat.
Not caveat. Poison pill. This new one has a poison pill hidden inside it, and it's exactly what you wanted in the first place. So
it's kind of like if we go back to the library law from not this past year but before, when they said all school libraries had to be completely cataloged and online so that parents could see exactly what was there. When it got to the Department of Education, Commissioner Swin said that includes classroom libraries.
Yes.
And so now we're looking at not cataloging libraries, which we had actually already done, but now we're looking at every book in the school, every newspaper. They were even talking about the little free libraries if they are on school grounds. I mean, it was far and beyond what the legislature had even considered. As soon as it got to the Department of Ed, the commissioner had the power to say,
right. And see, this
it's going to be every book.
Right, this goes back
publicly available at the school.
Right, and this goes back to what we were talking about last week. Like this has become a philosophical norm for me. I think the rule should be, how did I say it last week? It was that the rule, anything written should be, it is allowed, except for. Never, it's not allowed except for. Because if you start with it's not allowed, then that leaves all the room for these interpretation junk loophole kind of stuff. Where if you say it is allowed except for, then all you're worried about is the except fors. And I think that goes to abortion and a bunch of other stuff too. But I think that would clarify the library one we're talking about right now. And I think part of that book cataloging thing was just it was to ease the arsenal for those who wish to make a fuss about what's available in the schools, and which is another pet peeve of mine. Could you possibly give me the Knox County Schools definition of what a book ban is?
I don't think we have a definition of what a book ban is. The process that they go through would be to remove it from whatever school it's in, possibly. It would have to be challenged by either a parent or a staff member or a student in the school. And then it would have to be, I can tell you sort of what's considered, but I don't think we have a definition of a ban of that word.
Okay. Because this is one of the things I struggle with. Again, this is a rhetorical part of the argument, not necessarily a substance. Is the phrase book ban to me means it need not be available, period.
Right.
Now, what I think the functional word is, and especially when we're out here arguing about different stuff, is I think we're all on board with book banning at some level, because the functional definition is exclusion of a book or whatever from a certain place. So if I were to say, you are not allowed to bring your copy of, I don't know, Catch-22 into my house, definitionally, I am banning you from bringing that book in my house. Now, that's not how most people take that phrase. Most people take that phrase as, like that mouse that was Mouse, right? A couple of years ago, like that mouse, like it was. I was so confused. Like, this is literally how dumb I am. Is I was so confused because there's news about they're trying to ban this mouse book. They're banning the mouse book, and then whatever was it, Nirvana Comics up in Fountain City is giving away mouse books to any kid who comes in and asks for it. And it's like, how can both things happen at once? I'm so confused right now. And that's because the actual thing that was happening is they were banning the books from schools. And I think that's one of those things that I don't know. Again, it's that same thing with the when we say we're taking money out of the school system. We're taking money out because we're taking kids out. It's not necessarily just because the vouchers in play. Anyway, one of my pet peeves, and since I have a school person on, I'm curious what your take on that was.
Yeah, I think the way we want to handle controversial books is we want to be sure that whatever is available in our school libraries is age appropriate.
Right.
So if it's something that is far and above the reading levels of the students, there's no reason to have that anyway.
Sure.
So there are multiple kinds of ways of looking at that. And
Like, is 50 Shades of Grey at any Knox County school?
I doubt it.
I'm just saying, like, it's not.
I can't imagine that it would.
Like, there's
be.
not like it apparently is a very good book. I haven't read it. I'll admit, but it's like it doesn't seem like it's age appropriate for. I mean, I guess some of the junior, seniors in high school, it wouldn't be that crazy. It'd be a little weird, but I wouldn't be that put off if I heard some 17-year-old say they read that book. I wouldn't be like, oh my god. Like if a 12-year-old read that book, I'd be like, ooh, okay. We need to talk to your mom and maybe your priest about what's going on right now. But
I think if that one were out there, it would have come up before the ones that have come up.
right, I'm just saying, like, I mean,
And so we have all of our schools have librarians who have master's degrees in library science. Ooh. And their supervisor talked to us at Policy Review a while back about the process that they go through. And every community is a little bit different, what their students are interested in reading, maybe from school to school. So one school, they may be very, very interested in Harry Potter. One school, they may be very, very interested in Percy Jackson. So you may have more Harry Potter books at one school, more Percy Jackson books at another school.
Oh, there's a joke about what they're the same book, aren't they? I mean,
that's probably why I thought of those two.
they're very similar thematically, but I mean that's a great. I mean that is an archetype of archetypes of the orphaned hero. That's in many a story. That's Star Wars. That is the original Star Wars story. I've gotten into archetypes, like just trying to understand archetypes and why we like them so much.
So we should have started with the fourth book of Harry Potter.
Maybe. I'll tell you what. If are you into podcasts other than mine? Just say no. You're the only one that matters. That'd be great. There is a great one. It's the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling.
Oh.
It's very interesting. Like it's of all the politics that went around her, like watching her as we watched her career, because she started out as the right hated her because she was a heretic and all that kind of crap, and then in the last couple of years the left hates her because she's not trans friendly enough or whatever it is with some of her statements or whatever on Twitter. And it's like it's so amazing how the tides of the mass can shift on somebody like that her entire career she's been on the wrong side of something. And I think most people think she's probably a pretty okay person.
I got a text from somebody the other day about some vote for a policy that was in 2021. And she said, yeah, this person said they don't like you because of this vote. I'm like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And we talked about it some more, and it turns out it was a change in the law. We had to.
That's another thing that drives me nuts. Like we were talking about earlier, that's one of the things that drives me nuts about it is because, like, I like.
The recent thing was not. This is from 2021, and that
policy
person
change
has been
one that we
wadded
did
up about it all this time, and the law changed, and we were required to change.
Right. The policy, the school policy stuff that you guys are working on this week, that we shelf it. It's coming back next month. The changing, the language change.
It's going to come back on the 19th. We're going to talk about. I think we're going to look at all of those that have any kind of discrimination and harassment language in them.
Right. But I think that's a good example of what authority actually lies in our local school board of what's going on. Those are the things. That is a school board thing. That is a true school board thing. Figuring out what we're doing with this piece of land out in Farragut and what kind of school we're going to build on it, how big it's going to be, approving the budget to build it and all that kind of stuff. That's what our school board does. Our school board does very little when it comes to this is what we're teaching in third grade this year. You had a little bit of play maybe how you're teaching it particularly. You have a little bit of play on how policy for the employees of Knox County Schools works around it. But at the end of the day, subject X is getting taught in third grade. And these are the parameters that the state says you have to follow to teach subject X. And I think that's an important distinction that I don't think people know. And I'm sure it's frustrating for you and other school board members to have to consistently hear from the public, me being one of them for you included, about getting on and getting confused or getting upset with you guys about stuff that, as much as it looks like it's in your control, it isn't. And I think that's a problem. I think that's one of the bigger problems I have, because I have no shame or hesitation to give shit to Elaine Davis. She's been a very impossible representative to me. The only time I got any FaceTime with her ever was because I attached her to a children's event where there was no time for me to ask any real conversation or real questions with her about anything of real import. And for that matter, she was wrong telling these kids what's going on too. We talked about it on the show immediately after it happened. Which we had a Cub Scout thing. Part of the Cub Scout things is civic interaction, stuff like that. I had to come out and talk to kids. And she didn't really have a lot, she wasn't, I mean, it's a weird thing. I get it. You're not really prepared for it, whatever. So I was trying to help her get going. And I'm also talking to the parents, which she's really there to talk to get her votes this next round. And I was like, if you guys have stuff going on in schools that you're concerned about, this is who you need to talk to about it. She's like, no, you're the local school board, this, that, and the other. And it's like, which means one of two things. There's only two options with that response from her. Either she's lying or she doesn't know any better. Neither is a good answer to me.
I think the legislature really likes to say that they support local control.
Because they think they're Republicans and they're not. Sorry.
They support local control when it's something they don't want to deal with.
Or it suits them.
Right.
Or
exactly.
it's local control that they agree with.
Yes.
I.e. Memphis at large.
We support local control. Here's how you're going to do it. That's usually what we get.
Because, I think, if we want to talk solutions, I think that's the solution. I think, I don't know. I get it. I get the greater communal good of the state level on certain factors, especially inside schools. But I think when it comes to what's going on in our schools, Ryswick should be who I'm worried about and who I'm talking to, not trying to chase down Elaine Davis of the 10,000 other things that she's gotten in front of her. And that's not even a slight on her as a rep. That's just a slight on, you're a rep, you've got X, Y, Z, and. And so when I have one particular issue that's very important to me and I'm trying to make a good, clear, clean point on it, you get to file that away with the 10,000 other things that you've heard from constituents this week and then you get to prioritize that really based on how you feel about it, which, again, I don't blame her for that aspect of it other than where's the control? Where's the oversight?
And I think too often the education committees work out the bills, and then when they get to the House floor, the other members of the House say, well, the education committees are recommending it, so they vote in favor. And lots of times when I've talked to other legislators who are not on the education committees, they've told us, well, that's in the education committee, so I've not really looked at that. And they're going to be voting on it as soon as it gets to the floor. So
right. I've been trying to get Eddie. I've been trying to get a hold of Eddie Manis, and I really would love to. I would hope that in his current post rep state that he might be willing to be a little bit more truthful. Not truthful is not the right word. More open about how his time there was, because it was not good. He's been fairly open about that. But I kind of feel like that's a lot of what goes on there. I kind of feel like he gets there, and you have this. I think everybody has it at some level. You have this. You yield to the authority on the subject. And so when the Department of Ed comes and says, here's a bill we want you guys to put in place, well, obviously, you guys deal with that. You know what you're talking about.
Right. You guys have vetted it.
I also have to vote on this in 16 hours, so I don't have time to read through it or find somebody who can read through it in time to give me a good synopsis of what's actually going on here, especially in an even year like we're going to have this year, where we have an actively quieted gallery in the State House, both in media and public involvement in the House during the process. And it's an election year, and they can't start doing their real job of raising money until session is over. So it's going to be a quick session this year. Be ready for the normal 1,600 bills that they go through every year to still go through, but they're going to be doing in March. And it's going to be a lot, and there's no way we're going to see anything of what actually happens. I'm so scared. It's going to be a bad year. Not a bad year. It's going to be an interesting year. We'll put it that way. What's the other one? Yeah, so you tabled that one this week. Which, I mean, I kind of get it. Like, you changed, you shifted, right? You
Yes.
originally recommended?
Well, so, and
Because I think I'm in
what
the same
I
place
think
with you. I
about
get
it
where you're coming
hasn't
from.
changed. I believe that,
The word covers, the new word covers everything that needs to be covered.
right.
It's that some weird people somehow say, well, if we take out the old special words, that gives us permission to do X. It's like, well, no, it doesn't. It just makes it one word instead of a list of 12 words.
So instead of
Sam,
just,
do you have any idea what we're talking about right now?
Vaguely. I think I heard you mention that earlier.
it's two policies were put together, and that's probably where the problem has come from. But it's the non-discrimination policy and the harassment policy. So we're talking about sex-based harassment. And there's some additional language in there about sexual harassment not being allowed. Also, based on gender or perceived gender or perceived, other things. And so the state has what they call black letter law, which is law that has been in place for a long time and courts have supported. Sex, as explained to us by our attorneys, sex covers all of that. And so when we start,
I'm sorry.
when we start
that phrase that might be the quote of the year, and we're only 2 weeks in. Wait, that makes it easier. But
you want me to change it up and
No,
say
it's-
sex covers everything?
That quote is perfect. No, the lawyer's part made it even better. The sex, as our lawyers have explained to us, covers everything. Like, in context, out of context, that is a beautiful sentence. Like, it's just amazing, because that's how crazy the world has gotten to be, is that we have a lawyer explaining to us sex means, so that we can make policy basically saying, just be fucking nice to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe rephrase, the policy is, you're not allowed to be mean to each other.
And I've tried to tell
Regardless.
everyone that the line before this says we do not tolerate harassment, basically.
Yeah.
Period. That's what it says. But then there are some things that we are required by law to have in there. So
Right.
all those federal words,
Like the equal opportunity stuff, yeah.
right. So those words have to be there. But then when we add more words, that's when we're getting into the weeds about, what is what. When the bottom line is harassment isn't tolerated.
Yeah.
That's where it should be focused. And I would rather have concise, really clear policy, which is not what we have, that everybody can look at and say harassment isn't tolerated. And then our folks at the administrative level, when they are making their procedures and they're making their student handbooks, they should be able to make that very clear. But when it says,
Because you're right, we're not. I just, that popped in my head just. It's like one of the craziest, again, sentences that I've probably ever read in my life. Is I assume it's in Knox County at large. It might be my specific kids' school. In their introductory behavior thing you get at the beginning of the year every year, in the weapons category, is basically you can't threaten anybody else with a weapon or something like that. Duh. Weapons include, and then it lists some stuff, a stick. The stick is on the list.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that somewhere in that policy, too, is you can't threaten to punch somebody or kick somebody. So you can't threaten to physically harm somebody else is kind of in the premise. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I mean, I don't know. I got two boys. You put two boys and their friends out in the yard or out in the field or over at the ball fields playing around, and there's a stick, they'll chase each other with a stick around. And this is like, this is weapons policy, so this is like automatic expulsion. Are we still on the zero tolerance rule on that?
I don't think a stick falls under zero tolerance.
But like that scared the crap out of me when I was reading. I was like, because I mean, a kindergartner running around a playground is going to pick up his stick and chase his friend, and he's going to get expelled as a kindergartner. I'm like, oh, fuck.
I think the place where it comes into play is the intentionality of it.
Right.
What are you intending to do with that stick?
Are you playing cop and robbers?
I'm just saying, it
or
freaked
are
me
you-
out when I read it. There was a little while there until like, I don't know.
I don't remember stick being in the actual policy.
It might be.
but
It
I'll
might
go
be a
look.
school specific subset. That might have been a particular incident where some kid flunked a kid, and they felt the need to put that specific in there. But I remember like we were walking home from school one day, and it was just like first grade year, and he picks up a stick out in front of school. I was like, "Put it down." So just put it down. I don't even know how to mess with this. Don't pick up sticks at school. I know I'm crazy. That's what I do. anyway, I interrupted that with that whole spiel, but it was the policy thing that was at play. Is that I agree with you, because I think that's it goes back to my phrase. It's like everything's cool except because then it's specific. But if it's already there, it's already there. You don't need to repeat it, and it's just the more you open it up, the more likely it's to get overlooked rather, or interpreted in a way that it was not intended from the first place.
And if there's similar language, different places throughout policy, then
you want to tell me who
makes
it was?
It confusing.
Who called you and changed your mind? Because the story I heard on it was the inverse. It wasn't somebody calling you to tell you to change your mind. It was somebody called you and said, "Good job, we should do this," and then was a hateful douche canoe.
There you go. Yes, it was an email, and it was thanking us for making the change, and then it said a lot of really nasty things about children who identify differently, and it was the feeling in the email. It was very.
Right.
You could tell this person was empowered to say these things.
This was permission
about our children.
Yeah.
And it was really disturbing. And the person, it wasn't some anonymous just being silly. This person signed their name to it.
They're proud of it.
Oh, yes. They were. Yes. And I would not want any of the things that were said in that email to be said to any student.
Can I get a copy of it? You can redact their name. I want to read it.
Sure. I won't read it because
I don't. The way you're selling it, I might not read it on air, and I'm willing to say all that stuff.
You may take it very differently. It's just calling children delusional for how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing that
I get it.
Threw me over the edge.
I get it.
Because that's not going to be happening. That can't be happening. We can't have adults acting like that toward children. We shouldn't have children acting like that toward children, but adults acting like that toward children, absolutely no. And if our policy changing those words makes people believe that we are changing and adopting a philosophy of that's completely wrong.
Yeah. And if in their reading of it, that it emboldens them.
Yes.
Right, because that,
hey,
that
you agree
person,
with me, that's awesome.
Right,
it's like,
that
wait,
person
you're
turns
reading
around
it totally, hold on, we need to reread this because I don't see that.
Right, that person turns around and tells their kid, you don't have to not say that to your classmates anymore.
Right. We're free.
You got in trouble for it that once, you're not going to get in trouble for it anymore. Not that they wouldn't still get in trouble for it because it's technically still a policy violation, but they're dumb enough to think that it's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so kind of roll back to vouchers for just a little bit. I don't how much longer do you want to be? I'm not trying to keep you forever, but I'll keep you as long as you want to be here.
I'm good for a while.
Okay. So last cycle, so the 22 cycle, I went to the League of Women Voters school candidate forum, which nobody showed up for. But that's not a surprise at all. I'm looking around the room. The average age in the room is like 62, as per usual for all of these forums and stuff like that. The only person younger than me was Matt Shears. And maybe Jack Vaughn might have been there too. I don't remember. Anyway, and so, this is the first time I'd ever been to any kind of forum and stuff like that. So I'm going in there and somebody hands me a card. It's like, if you want to write a question down, you can hand it to the person and they'll read your question for you. And so I was thinking about it. It's like, okay. And this was as the voucher thing was kind of starting to hint around. Not that it hasn't been a thing for a decade now or whatever, but there's some more seriousness to it. So my question was, I was like, it seems that vouchers are happening whether you guys like it or not. How do we make Knox County schools the choice for where people send their kids instead of the default? And I think that especially applies now. And I think that is something that I'll be asking all candidates when I do candidate shows, which isn't today for you, but I will talk about how awesome you running as independent is. I love it. And so I think that is the question to me long term, because I don't think, this genie's out at this point. We've got to figure out a way to deal with what we have. That's the continuation. You can either leave Tennessee, or stop coming to Tennessee. That'd be cool too. There's too many of you guys moving in and overcrowding our schools, among other things. It's getting overcrowded with all the influx of new Tennesseans we have. But, short of screwing them out of here, how do we fix this? And I think that's I think that's a real question. And I think that's a real question that needs to be thoughtfully answered by all the candidates that are coming up, both on school board, but really, again, like we said, more specifically, your state Senate and House races. I got Massey coming. I've got others. I'm going to keep doing my thing on that side. But how do we make it, like, what do we need to do to get better teachers, to get better results? Because, again, we got to deal with the metrics we have to play with. And so how do we make, like if the argument is that you're wrong for how you're doing the metrics, I don't know what we can do about that one because the metrics are stuck.
Well, I do have something we can do about that, and I don't feel like I'm talking badly about the superintendent because I've talked to him about this. When we say we need to do better, sure, everybody always needs to strive to do better. We should not be acting like those metrics are valid. So when we are talking about those metrics, every time we're talking about those metrics, we need to talk about what they really say. Instead of saying, our third graders are doing this well, but they need to do better. Well, no, because that's not what that test says at all. What we need to talk about is what that test actually measures. So part of it is educating the public, because the public needs to understand those metrics. And we're not effectively doing that if we are just taking that talking point and saying we need to do better, because that's not accurate.
And on that point at large, and this goes to all the election stuff we're going to talk about in the next year, is how do we get them to listen?
Yeah.
I mean,
really it's...
Like, I'm not smart, I'm not great, but if people cared about Knoxville politics, they should be listening to my show. I'm not trying to brag on myself for being smart or anything like that, but because I'm not that awesome at it. But, like, other than me and the Compass guys, and Brian a little bit, but very biased Brian, and he knows it. I'm not talking bad about him. He knows his take on it. But, like, nobody covers it with any real effort.
Yeah.
And nobody covers it because
it's hard.
Nobody buys it. Nobody's buying it. I couldn't sell a sponsorship for my show right now. I can't prove to anybody that I have 10,000 people listening regularly. 10,000 of 500,000. Yeah. But yes, you're right. I agree. I agree, because I think on my stupid nuance thing that I'm so stuck on about how pulling kids out of schools is pulling kids' money out of schools, no matter what you're doing with them. If I move to Texas, or if I take my kids to Catholic, my kids' money comes out of Knox County schools.
But part of it is the desire to go somewhere else. And so it's a two-pronged thing. What do we do for folks to want to go to Knox County schools? And you ask about keeping good teachers. We have to treat them better. That's the bottom line, is we have to treat them better. And that's also really hard to do locally when you have a state legislature that's berating them all the time. And that's also back there with those test scores. The superintendent and his administration and our board really need to lead with what those scores really mean.
Sure.
And
using
them. I mean, we've had tests forever. We've had standardized tests forever, but this idea that they are measuring something that they don't measure, that's the piece we've got to get away from. We've got to stop saying that students are not proficient when that's not a test that measures that. We need to talk about it in realistic terms. And that's difficult when you have politicians who want to use those terms and are using those terms to sell vouchers. So it's really, I think our school districts have to do a better job of not just saying those words, we've got to do better. We've got to say what that means.
Right.
Instead of saying, oh, yes, we've got these test scores that say this, and we've got to do better. Those test scores don't say that.
Right, and then you run into the problem of whatever metrics you guys want to put together to try to start looking into things cost money that you don't have to do.
Right.
It's like, well, how do we? Okay, so let's hire some poor statistician who's going to dig through every student's grades in every year and do all this stuff and compile it into this big beautiful graph that does this big beautiful things. I mean, if they can do it in a couple of years, then A, we have an old picture, but B, we just spend $200,000 or whatever it is, the salary of this person to get there that we don't have and we need to spend on other places.
I remember several years ago when they first started having the choice where they were required to send a letter to schools that were on the list. And I was teaching in one of those schools at the time, and the parents got this letter saying that because the school had test scores below a certain level and they were on the list, that those parents were eligible to request a transfer to a higher performing school. And there were parents in the office in tears saying, we don't want to leave. We don't want to leave here. And it was difficult to explain to them that, no, you don't have to go somewhere else. We're just required to send this letter saying that you can if you want to. And I don't think anyone left.
Because I think one thing, and I don't know if this would be in your guys' wheelhouse or a state thing. It probably is a state thing. I got my sister lives in Colorado, and Colorado at large permits inside school district open selection. I don't know, there's a better phrase for it than that. Is that something that the school board could push, or would that have to be pushed through as a state law? Though it's at because I'm in a weird spot. Like all my
you mean within the whole district?
Yeah,
we already have that. So if a student wants to transfer to another school, they fill out a transfer request. And if that school has space available, that's where it gets tricky.
Yeah. Which is no. The answer is already no. Every school is no.
Yeah, most schools are overpopulated.
Unless I want to send my kid to the school that everybody isn't wanting to send their kids to.
And so maybe there's space available in, it depends on each grade.
Right,
too.
and presumably that would be the same in Colorado too. It's like it's not like you could all the kids go to one school, but it would. I mean, it's an interesting because that's one of the things that I find. How do I word this? That I find kind of fascinating about schools is because theoretically they should all be the same.
Theoretically,
they should all have the same average level of teacher quality, for lack of a better phrase, average level of funding and supplies and materials and all the different parts and pieces. And, again, that's why the stupid ABC grade thing for the schools is dumb, because really all it tells us is what's around the school, not what's in the school. And so so theoretically it shouldn't matter, I guess. I shouldn't want to send, unless one school has a better X sports program that I want my kid to play in or something like that, which my kids aren't athletes, so I ain't worried about that.
When we get down into it and we look at kids transferring in and out of schools, the schools that they are transferring in and out of, it's not like a big exodus of kids from one school leaving. There are usually about as many transferring in as transferring out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the fence just for nostalgia's sake. I'm a Bearden grad. We're Zone West by like a foot. Like it's dumb. Like most of my kids' closest friends at least are all just over the hill here, and they're all Zone Bearden. And we're closer to Bearden than we are to West, but we're Zone West. And so I don't know. Although I heard West has got some good turnaround when the 2008 crisis and all of the Catholic parents took their kids out because they couldn't afford it anymore. They shoved them into West and all that PTO money. Boom! I like it. So we'll see. I don't know. I've been shopping property on Sutherland to put my hot dog stand so they can come out of school and we can come to work.
Could work.
We have a hot dog restaurant. It's going to happen. You're going to see that. I only have 3 businesses now. I can't not have a 4th or 5th. I can't help myself.
Why stop now?
It's fun. That's what we do. It's all I feel better about giving that one to my kids than selling drugs like my other one does. Yeah, you can have my restaurant, not my drug dealing enterprise. Legal drugs, people. Well, for now, we'll see. That's another state legislature. That was the state legislative thing we were referencing there. So, we did the charter school thing. I'm trying to think of stuff we've talked about before, Sam, about schools that we wanted to ask. Like, I went on a big long rant.
Well, we were talking about metrics, and I'm kind of curious to ask.
Go.
What do you think is a more honest way to not necessarily evaluate, but I guess look and see how the schools are or are not doing? What would you suggest?
If we were looking at student growth instead of a percentile, if we were looking at them like from where they come in and how much they grow while they're there, if we're looking at other things that they're also doing in the school besides just the standardized test things, which, how do we measure those other things?
Right.
Looking at the opportunities in the schools, if we're looking at how the school is performing, I think when we're looking just at metrics could be used if they measured what they say they measure.
Right.
You know, that's where we're really getting into the issues with the tests we have now. It's because what our legislators say they measure, that's not what they measure. And they do not want to even discuss that because they have decided that that's truth and they're not going anywhere else with it. So, you know, if we have ways to look at how much a student grows through the years. We can look at their testing at the beginning and as they go through smaller pieces, not like a one-time winner-take-all test. You know,
right.
It's the high-stakes test is where it's problematic because it's just that one time. And if it were being used as just a snapshot, that would be different, but it's not. It's being used as this huge weight.
Right.
There are lots of different tests that they take throughout the year. And I think if they are showing growth, that should be a way to tell how that student is doing. Because if we have a student that's starting, you know, at reading at a first grade level and a student starts reading at a third grade level, we are not going to get them to the same place in a year. But we are going to grow them. And so I think looking at how much gain they make, I think that's much more valid.
I mean,
I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, I get that as a premise. Like, you know, like I said, like I'm not sure I necessarily agree with the new academy's plan per se, as far as what it's like. It's a question I've asked a ton of times. Like, you know, what does and maybe this is part of my mistake, and I know better, or at least I know better now. So maybe I should re-ask the question more correctly. What does the state of Tennessee legislature want a graduate of a state of Tennessee high school to be? And I don't know that they know the answer to that question. I know, like I said, I feel like Ryswick has an answer to that question, at least of what's going on locally. Now, agree or disagree with the answer to the question that Ryswick's giving, at least there's something that's something we can base off of. Because again, with you know, talking about we can measure growth. Well, that also shows us how short we are of achieving the end goal here, because we have an end goal. I don't think that there's anybody at the state level that is actually talking about what the end goal is. Because I don't know if it's possible. Maybe it's an impossibility because it's so big, or maybe it's I don't know. Like, I mean, I feel like that's the thing because again, going back to my anecdotal examples of some of the employees I've had, like, you know, it gets into the broader conversation of the economics of education versus the quality, for lack of a better word. Like, they're like. And this is the capitalist in me, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, we have to have productive people. Like, that's a requirement for this society to continue. And I mean, it doesn't even that's not even a capitalist issue. That's an all economies issue. You have to have productive people that are producing something of value that they can be exchanged and all that kind of stuff that goes on. And we have to figure out how. I mean, that's the only way it makes sense on a societal level on why we would do schools is to create productive people. I mean, that's the old Austrian model thing that we want people that'll go die for the flag that we tell them to, and we'll go work in the factory. That's why we use bells in the first place, right? You know that story? That's where the bell came from in schools. It's from the factory bell. Anyway.
You sure about that?
Pretty sure.
Okay.
Pretty sure the factory bell was first. Anyway. But like that, and so the economics of the point of school and that's where I get kind of stuck in the I don't know. I don't have an answer per se of what we communally think a successful job of us teaching a kid is. Like, I respect Ryswick for having one. I don't know how I feel about it on the grand scheme of things, but I respect it for existing. But I certainly don't see that at the state level. And as we've discussed at length, is that the state level is the one that's really controlling what that actually is. Like, Ryswick can fidget with what he's available to fidget with to get to his version of that goal, but the state doesn't have that goal, at least not publicly that I've seen in any concise manner.
I think the goal is communicated to us through the curriculum, through what they want us teaching, like how much math, how much science, how much English. I think that's how they communicate those goals. I think if we're looking at productive members of society, it's something that would be really difficult to measure and difficult to define, because, looking at what we do in school, where do we say this student is more productive than this student? If we're looking at, so tonight my husband is playing French horn in Wicked, so he's being very productive right now, and that's something that he started.
Are you trying to say you're not being productive right now?
I'm being productive, of course.
That's damn right you are. You're on my show. We're learning. Wait, learning in and of itself is productive. Yes, I agree with that.
I'm using that example because, yes, he did that in school. Yes, he learned that in school. It's not going to be on any test that we're going to take. And our legislature and our local administration don't show a lot of support for the arts.
I agree.
So
I'm a band dork. You don't have to tell me twice.
I think it would be difficult for us to say what is productive for different people.
It's very subjective.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. No, there's like at least in the society that we live in, there is a cash value for productivity, and enjoyment, entertainment, personal, and like we argued about this. Not argued. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Had an employee that worked for us who has a master's in, what do we call it? Do you remember? It was a master's in non-heteronormative geography. Fascinating. Really neat. Actually, I felt like a jackass because I was dismissive at first, but when they explained it to me a little deeper, it's like, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. That's neat. That's cool. Where's the value in that? I am all for educating yourself for the fun of educating yourself. I think that's great. But at the end of the day, there has to be a productivity measure at play. We have to have a productive society. We have to have people who are doing, making, creating, sharing, selling, buying. We have to have those things. And some of us who are fortunate, like myself, and I consider myself very lucky to be able to do this, I can have my productive section of my life be shrunk enough that I can have my unproductive entertainment value education that I like to do, like we're doing right now. This is educational entertainment to me, and it's fun and it's great, but I acknowledge that it's not productive. It's not a production. It's not productive in the sense that in a monetary, this doesn't...
Not to you, but there's a section of society that finds that information valuable to them. So
no,
for them, it is.
It's not valuable, because if it was valuable, because I am not seeing a return on said value.
You aren't seeing a return, but there may be, society may see a return, not a monetary return. It may be a return in better elected officials. It may be a return in more accountability for something. It may be a return in somebody starts paying attention where they weren't paying attention before. And all of those things are also valuable, even if they are not financially valuable to someone. They're valuable to society.
Man, that's weird. That's hard to argue against, just because that makes me important. But I don't know. Like I often argue on here that my ridiculous ignorance and stuff like that is not abnormal, and that is the value in what I do. And that I'm willing to say out loud some of the stuff that a lot of people have questions about, but they're like, oh, somebody's going to call me dumb. Or I could never get Jennifer Owen to talk to me and explain this to me. It's like, well, all I got to do is ask. That's all I did. It was ask. It's not that I'm special or anything like that. It's just that I'm dumb enough to go through the process of finding you and then asking if you're willing to come talk to me about stuff. And so, yeah, I follow what you're getting at as far as value, but I don't know. I like where that comes into.
You want it to be more valuable on a grander scheme?
You want to be able to measure it.
Maybe that's part of it. Like it's that. I mean, because maybe I would take it as a positive gain measurement if I felt like I could say with some degree of realism that I affected that. Not monetarily, but I affected that. Like, I affected your election. Not that I want to pro or con your election or whatever, but that there are people out there who voted for you or didn't vote for you because of the conversation we had. Like I would feel a positive gain out of that. But I think that's distinctly and specifically on this one. It's because is your husband a professional French horn player, or is that a hobby, side gig, kind of thing?
It's a second profession.
Okay. Because I guess that's kind of why I was trying to equate the two in the sense that I'm. If I didn't have other, no matter how much like arguable value I do create in what I'm doing here, I can't do this without that actual monetary value I'm creating over here. And fair or not, I'm in a position where I can lean on that monetary value to give me this hobby value. IRS, if you're listening, this isn't a hobby, this is a profession. I am writing off things on my taxes. I do get paid for my services from time to time. It's a complicated situation, and I'll show you it on my documentation as required. I'm just, for conversation's sake, this is hobby, but it's not a hobby because I do taxes and stuff on this thing. Point being,
I'm completely uncompensated for being here.
And so am I.
If we're talking to the IRS,
this is
be sure we all get out there.
It's one of those fun weird things. Is I'm a client of my business. This isn't a business, but my production studio is, and I am a client of it. And my production studio does business.
So you're losing money because you're paying.
Right. I'm paying myself to do the engineering work that I'm doing on this side of the table, as well as my hosting skills. I'm giving that away for free, but I am getting paid for my engineering skills for the Compass Guy show, and so that whole thing. Anyway, we got the little tangenty there. I got a little bit too capitalist on the value of education kind of thing. I'm trying to bring it back to where we get the metrics. I guess is what we were talking metrics and I was getting on the economics of education, because again, I have no issue with like, I think it's totally cool. Like my wife probably has a master's plus in classics at this point, with how much she knows about ancient Greece, ancient Rome. She could tell you like the shape of every brick on Hadrian's Wall at this point. She loves that kind of stuff. Super good at it, super smart. It sucks when I'm playing Jeopardy with her and it gets to be anything in the classics in Jeopardy, she will dominate. But, it's not what she's wanting to do. It's just education for fun, and I think that's great. But I guess the point I was getting to is that if I acknowledge the societal good of educational fun, especially in the arts, but when it gets down to the brass tacks of it and the economics of why a societal body like the state would have an educational system in the first place is to grow and build the economics of their state, I would assume, and maybe that's a strong assumption on my part. Actually, it's not. That's the reality of old school schools. Whether we're still in that same format or not is a different question. But the history of the schools in the U.S. is built on the economics of education. The point of it was to make paid production more possible. It's to build factory workers and soldiers. Yes, no? Am I crazy? I'm getting a sideways look, people. I got to describe it because we're not.
I'm sure going back to even some of our grandparents, dropped out when they're freshmen, sophomore year. Like, it wasn't uncommon, and it wasn't really more so like looked down upon. But that was when we still had a little bit more like agriculture that was going on throughout the U.S.
Well, and that goes to the argument we had a couple weeks ago about like, what does a degree actually mean when you get a degree from college or whatever? Right. Where at least my take as an operator of business is 9 out of 10. It's like, well, if your degree's somewhere in my field, that just gets everybody that doesn't have a degree off my list, so I have less people to talk to. That's a huge chunk of it. Again, as we talked about it a couple weeks ago, I wouldn't say it's in totality. I wouldn't say it doesn't mean that you are more educated and you have more knowledge that could be more helpful to me in my business, but it sure helps when I can cut out 90% of the applicants just based on whether they have a piece of paper or not.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking about that, just in thinking about like metrics. If we're kind of comparing to percentage of, students versus graduation rate. If you went back to 40s and 50s or so, if you're looking at graduation rate, that was with people that were going through all the way. I don't know if they were actually measuring those that were allowed to, kind of drop out before then. So the graduation rate was higher of those that, went through junior, senior year. versus total that actually started school.
Right. If you
but
bothered getting that far
finish.
in, you might as well finish.
Right.
I mean, that's what I got. My eldest at least finished Cub Scouts because we only had 9 months left. We might as well at least get that last badge and call it before we quit.
Yeah.
I get that. Okay. I mean, I don't. Like I said, I don't get the feel, and this is not a school board thing. This is a state thing. I don't get the feel like that there's any consistent premise of what they're trying to do, other than maybe to take apart what exists. And I would acknowledge that as they won't say that part out loud either. But other than trying to dismantle public schools, as they said, I don't see that the state of Tennessee has any long-term, intentional, specific goal for what they're doing in the education system. Jennifer is questioning why she came out tonight. She could have gone home. She already told me she wasn't coming and that she wasn't going to be here. And now she's like, man,
I could be in the car eating Twizzlers.
Yeah.
Oh.
I could be eating Twizzlers on air and nobody would like that.
I've got them over here. I'll pass them over.
I love Twizzlers. No.
They're already open too.
It's going to sound like I'm a loud chewer. It's not good for anybody.
I don't know. I think just having people I think the definition of being a productive member of society is where things are difficult. Because, if it's, I don't think everyone would consider it financially productive. I think a lot of people would be looking at just whether society is working.
Well, and okay. I mean, I'm not sure exactly, but I mean, I don't think society is working. I don't know.
If you focus on the negative, I mean,
I'm not focused on the negative. I mean, I just think, we have I don't know. There's so many different ways you go with the brokenness of society. I mean, what is the current unhoused, if that's the right word anymore, population just in Knox County?
It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, we can't decide whether you're not allowed to hate people by sex is a clear enough term or not without a lawyer involved. I can't put something in my body that I want to put in my body that is, for whatever reason, I want to put it into because somebody else says that's not okay. I mean, there's lots of stuff if I don't even have to focus on the negative to go down a big list of things, of the ills of our society right now.
I'll see if I can't find some more positive things.
Okay.
If we walk out the door,
I'm not a negative person.
It's not Escape from New York out there when we go out
but
the door.
the negative things are
you
things
say that, but we had a whole big thing with one of my neighbors, and it was there's some immigration law status and some crazy shit with that, and then his ability to work, and then personal financial woes. His mom passes, gets into some drugs and alcohol problems, falls down the rabbit hole, blah blah blah, rolls out. And the whole time, I remember having a very, because again, I fancy myself a little bit more libertarian. Like, you take care of you, I'll take care of me, whatever, blah 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 blah. But having a real conversation, and I can't remember who, one of the many wonderful people who I've met doing this show, who was a little bit more involved in some of the mental health community access kind of things. I remember calling her and talking to her and be like, I don't know what to do. It's certainly philosophically not in my wheelhouse to be like, hey, police, come take my neighbor out of his house because I think he's crazy. That is not something that I would ever consciously put out there. But it was getting to the point where I was concerned to not be at home when my wife or my kids are at home, because there was obviously something going on, and I don't know how to handle that. And not being able to have again, because it's part of the immigration thing. It was like, well, I don't want to call the folks out here and have them just sit down and be like, hey, is everything okay? Can we get you some help? Even if there was some, good, drug abuse counseling programs or something like that available, or mental health programs available here locally, which there's not a lot of anyway. But even if there was, it adds a level of, well, I don't want to get him in, we had the whole mess with, Knox County Sheriff's Office, and there was a G13 or whatever. you're gonna get picked up and processed because your neighbor cares about you and wants to get you some mental help because you need it. But we just realized that you're not supposed to be here. We're gonna ship you back to Guatemala or whatever, and so it's I don't know. It was a sucky situation all around, and that's a big long story for a weak example of some of the ills of society, I suppose. But I don't know. I'm worried about it. I'm worried about some national issues that we have at play and some international issues we have at play. This stuff going on in the Middle East right now. I'm scared to death. Not that I'm going to war, but you know how U.S. does stuff. We don't do anything half-assed. When's the last time we did a war that was less than 15 years? My eldest is 13. So he's got 10 years of potential war in front of him if we get started in this today or tomorrow.
Did you get drafted?
No, I didn't.
Or are you worried about getting drafted?
No, but I'm also worried my kid's dumb enough, and not dumb enough. That's the proper way. I'm worried that there's enough patriotism that's getting taught to my kid in schools that he might want to. Because I did.
Right.
I had a big struggle with it. I didn't, immediately out of high school, I didn't. My dad was encouraging me to. My dad wanted me to go in the Navy, even though he was an Army guy, but whatever. My dad wanted me to go in the Navy. I was like, I ain't about that. I don't really want to do that or whatever. And about 25, I was like, man, I wish I would have gone. A bunch of friends that I've had that gone over there. Now I'm like, God damn, I'm glad I didn't go.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm scared to death that one of my kids is going to get sent to Gaza or Ukraine or whatever, China or something. We'll pick some fight somewhere. And that's the, I don't know. That's one of the, again, I respect Reiswick for putting together a program, but man, being military ready was not one that I really, it's up to my kids. It's their choice. If they make that decision, I'll support them.
At that point, it's
I will
their
make that
choice.
decision and I will support them and I'll love them forever. But man, I do not want that for my kids. I don't, and it scares me because the picture I sent you. I don't know if it's actually a Banksy or not. It's like life doesn't suck that bad. It's your government that does. And I'd like that it was a graffiti thing. It was a Banksy style, whatever, and that hit hard for me because I think it's true. Do you really think anybody in Gaza really cares that much about anybody in Israel or vice versa? No. Do you think anybody? On a more local level, do you think anybody really cares? For on any scale, at least, that anybody really cares what a kid wants, what pronoun a kid wants to be used on them? Nobody cares. Not really. It's just something to fight about because we can't help ourselves. It drives me crazy. And, I don't know. Every once in a while I have a little bit of an existential moment about having kids. Apologies.
I think on that people just want to be able to argue their viewpoint.
Yeah, but the part to me, and this is the part that I love. This is the value in the show to me personally. This is where I get real feels out of it. Is that especially people like you, Jennifer, and I really appreciate you for this. Is that most people can't separate it anymore, and that may be the number one thing in education that concerns me. Is most people can't separate it anymore. I don't hate you. I disagree with what you're thinking. I disagree with your idea. I disagree with your method to get to an end. But I don't hate you. And that's why I really appreciate you running as an independent, because I think the R and the D is the number one reason why we're at this place in this world right now, is that we can't help ourselves, that our red team, blue team bullshit takes over everything all the time. And it drives me crazy because I catch myself in conversations all the time, especially on Facebook, but I catch myself in conversations all the time, double checking that my statement is not a partisan play, and then double checking their argument against me on whether it is or isn't. And more often than not, it becomes a you're wrong because partisan bullshit than it is you're wrong because anything. And the fact that it's become so difficult for people to separate that, I guess, is what really scares me about the general intelligence of the masses anymore. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's always been that way. I don't know. Maybe we've always just kind of... it's easier that way. I get it. It's just easier to group think it out and not do whatever. But I don't know. It's just like the idea of the... we had a fun one up the street. We had two neighbors that the Trump and Biden flags got bigger and bigger week to week and stuff like that. And it's like that those two were great about it. To be honest, they were great. They were, as far as we could tell, it wasn't like they were throwing firebombs in each other's windows at night.
They're having fun with it.
But the inverse is, I see somebody in a MAGA hat, I'll punch them in the face, and then they take a video of themselves doing it and put it on the internet, and that's real. And I don't know, I don't think that's historically normal, and I certainly don't think it's okay. But I don't think it's historically normal. I don't think that's how we used to relate to each other as people. Or maybe it was easier back then because we were all racist because that's the way we were living back then too. I don't know. Maybe we had an A-B back then. It was just, instead of right-left, it was black-white or male-female. And we've just slowly been breaking down those old divides, and so we have to find a new one today.
We've had, political satire, even just in, newspapers going back, 100, 150 years that were, grossly exaggerated, caricatures of a president, senator, etc. They were kind of making fun of either their viewpoints or what they were proposing.
Yeah, but viewpoints and proposals is fine, but it's not them personally. It's not you're dumb or you need to die because you think that.
No, I mean, some of it was personal.
I mean, Taft was fat, man. I mean, that's all you get. It's just a fact.
Right, but that's
I don't know why. Taft's one of my favorite presidents just for that stuck in the tub story.
Right.
It's just a great, that's I learned that in school, apparently, because I don't know where else I would have learned.
Exactly. I mean, that's the story of him, and it's something that's personal. It wasn't anything that he did policy-wise.
Well, but that's
it
back
was
in
just
the day.
An attack on him.
That's back
being
in the day when the presidents
person.
were actually inside the Constitution and didn't have that much power. I mean, that's back when the presidency was a totally different animal back then.
What do you mean? How did they have less power?
It's one of those. Like, I don't know. How good are you at the Constitution, Jennifer? Maybe you can help me out.
Not very.
Okay. Because my understanding is that the key role of the president is to execute as the executive branch is to execute the laws set forth by the legislature and foreign affairs. That is which foreign affairs would fall under the commander-in-chief category and stuff like that. So the majority, to me, I see the president as our figurehead for international relations, as their number one job. Historically, or constitutionally, maybe is a better way to say it. Constitutionally, that's what I see is that they're supposed to be doing. That U.S. policy that Biden or Trump running right now on what we're going to do about abortion law isn't really in the wheelhouse of what I think the president should be doing. That's my interpretation of the Constitution as I understand it. I understand that it's not the general consensus. But I think that is something that we have slowly but surely gotten away with. There's a great video I saw of a guy who's talking about, what was the tax on tea with the whole Boston Tea Party thing? How much was the tax?
No idea.
It was like 3%.
Okay.
What does the average American pay in taxes?
I don't know.
You
have the answer. Come on.
Like 40 to 50% of their income goes into taxes on one level or another.
Seems gross, but okay.
I mean, 20% income. I mean, it depends which tax we're going to talk about, but on a person-to-person level, the moral of the story is that we're willing to go to war with the superpower of the time over a 3% tax on tea. But yet we slowly
it wasn't over the tax, though. It was that they could make the tax whatever they
without
wanted
their
to.
consideration. Sure.
Yeah, without any ability to say no.
Yeah, I think you're minimizing the Boston Tea Party at saying that was like the main, fuck it, that's the last straw. All right, we're going to war. You try to tax us on tea. I mean, we were cool with everything else.
I think I was in Wisconsin when I did that portion of U.S. history, so I apologize to Wisconsin education. I'm blaming it on them. No, I acknowledge that. You're right. It was taxation without representation more than it was about the tax in and of itself.
Right.
I still think we could tax the shit out of it and don't get anything for it. Or not much, at least. Jennifer, thoughts?
It's your opinion.
I told you Friday shows are crazy. They're a lot looser here.
I've listened to your Friday show.
I know, and you've commented. And I do appreciate the emails. I really do. And I try to, if I remember, to bring it up next week. Like, hey, Jennifer told me how dumb I was on that one thing that one time.
I wasn't telling you were dumb. It's just, hey, by the way, I know that answer.
Yeah, you just have to be wrong on that.
I mean, in a perfect world, if everything was if I had this down to a science and a regular, this would be like a Tuesday afternoon. I would tape normally, and whomever I'm talking to and whatever, and then I would have a whole Rolodex sitting ready to go and be like, when I say something stupid, like, I wonder how that works.
Hold on,
I can be like, man. Hey Jennifer, can you explain this to me real quick? We were talking about this, and I was trying to understand. That would be the most amazing thing ever. That would be the perfect show format for me. But
I've been
I'm not
listening
getting-
before, and I've thought, why didn't he text me and ask me that?
Well, I mean, because and I joke about it all the time. I don't. Short of you telling me you were coming, I didn't have any particular plan. I was going to complain to him about the weather issues with school. But I think it was. I think one of the ones we talked about before, because we did 20 minutes before you got here. And I'd be curious your take on this. How did I word it earlier? It was the idea that this is where I know I depart from the left. The idea that more government will correct corrupt government is just to me it is a logical fallacy. Because the problem with why government is corruptible is because of the power, and by giving more people power, you're not going to correct the corruption. You're just going to add to different levels of corruption, which I think is why my argument for why, I think if we really wanted to fix public schools, tell the state to screw off, let Knox County collect the taxes they want to do and spend it how they want to spend it on their constituency. I mean, Knox County specifically, we don't need the state because we're giving the state money to give to other counties, and I acknowledge that as a communal good for the state level thing, and I understand why that is the way it is. But I mean, hell, put a state thing in place that says for counties that exceed X number of dollars in tax revenues, they need to contribute X percentage to a state education fund that will be distributed evenly between other states that have less. And you can do a math on that. It's not that hard. But let Knox County teach their own kids how they want to teach their own kids. Who cares? Is it important? I mean, I think you said it right here. Just in Knox County, we have different schools that have different libraries, not because of some intent to teach this set of kids this or that set of kids that. It's that the interest is there for this. We have Harry Potter and Harry Potter at two different libraries, as I think was the joke we did earlier. So we have Harry Potter and Percy Jackson at the two different libraries because for whatever reason, those kids are into those ones. And just inside our own school district, we have those differences. So why on God's green earth are we trying to get Knox County schools and Shelby County schools and McMinn County schools to function similarly?
I think that's a state constitution
I
question.
mean, I agree. Right. Yes. Legally, yes, I understand that part. But on a philosophical level, why is this the way we do stuff? And because to me, I think what happens in reality is that we have a strong and powerful, and I'll say corrupt, central school governing body in the state of Tennessee that has a incentive, which is one of my things. Incentives is all that matters. Whatever incentives you put in place is really what is how you're going is the results you're going to get. And so their incentive is not to educate our kids. Their incentive is not to do well by our teachers. Their incentive, I'm not sure what it is, but it sure isn't making our schools better or our students better or our teachers better off. That seems to be the reality because that's what we're watching happen in play. It seems that for whatever reason, their incentive right now is to pump money into private schools. Don't know why why they're incentivized to do that, but that seems what it is. And so if that's what it is, then that's what the incentive's there for. And the only reason that incentive's there is because the power that's already there to put it there in the first place. So if we take that power out, then we don't have that incentive structure that screws me and my kids and you and your kids and our neighbors and their kids by making some weird thing that doesn't make sense to anybody. But it sounds good when you pitch it right.
I think I would agree that more government doesn't solve that problem. But the solution that I see is not one that people want, because the solution would be people paying more attention to what their government's doing, and people don't want to do that.
Yeah, that's true. That is one of my probably my number one fallacy when I get going on stuff, is that I forget that I am weird because I care, not care because I pay attention, because I pay attention and I see the holes. Because it's not that hard. Again, I'm not that smart, people. I promise. It's not me being self-deprecating. It's just being real. It's like this isn't like I don't have some advanced. There's nothing special about me that got me to where I'm at, other than the willingness to do. And it's not that hard. But I agree. I think that is number one. It's because what So you got elected in 2020. Yes. What district? I forgot what district. Two in county is Hardin Valley and stuff?
No, 2 is Fountain City.
Oh, North Knox.
Yeah. North Knox, Bolton Central, Richard Yoakley.
But I had a Fountain City reference earlier and you didn't get it. I'm confused. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Did I not get it?
I used to live up there.
Just go with it.
Lived in a great. I lived in when we had the first one at in a wonderful little duplex right off Central High School. Got to hear the band on Friday nights, whether I wanted to or not. It was awesome.
Yep.
I love the band. So again, this is just simple curiosity. So District 2, how many eligible voters are in District 2 in Knox County?
Actually registered?
Yeah.
I think it's around 30,000.
How many people did vote for you? No, come on, you remember this number.
I don't remember.
What?
Well, okay, so there was a 2016 election and there was a 2020 election. One of those, I think only 15% turned out. I think that was the 2016 one. And then the 2020 one was bigger. But they've changed the whole,
right.
School board partisan now, which is ridiculous, but that's what the state did. So
any election being partisan is ridiculous to me. I mean, right. Those are like this last city race, only because it's current. So sad, so sad, and I forget that. I make fun of myself for doing the show or not having a big audience for the show and not being able to get paid and get sponsorship. It's like, of course I can't get sponsorship. If I had every voter in Knox County listen to me, I don't have enough people for somebody else to pay me to do this. There's just not enough of you that bother voting. It's just a good election this year with the crazy president and all that kind of stuff. We might get 60,000 total votes in Knox County. It's maybe 70. That'd be good. I think we got right at 100 in 2020. Not countywide. Something like that. I think it was 102.
I think it was higher when the governor was up.
In 22? Oh, yeah, because that was the pandemic election. Yeah, you're right. 22.
I'm thinking it was...
Yeah, the 22 turnout was
closer to 150, maybe?
No.
Am I way off?
I don't know. I'll have to double check that. Maybe I shouldn't say no that dismissively, but it was...
No.
I don't feel like it was that much. I feel like... Because I feel like I was talking to Chris about it... I feel like I was talking to Chris about it. It's 106 was the most recent high, or maybe it's 206. No, that ain't right because that'd be everybody. I mean, 150 would be.
That seems really high.
What 2, 1, 206?
150 sounds too high.
Yeah,
even though I said it.
Yeah,
150. I don't know. We have 60,000 kids in Knox County School. We have 500,000 people in Knox County at large. That leaves us 440. There's certainly a bunch more kids and uneligible voters that live in Knox County. I would say of people who would legally be allowed to vote if they went through the process, we have maybe 300. Maybe. I think that'd be a generous estimate. And so half of that would be 150. We didn't have a 50% voter turnout.
No.
I think it was 106.
30,000.
That's what I'm saying. I think it was 106. And this is countywide. Of the 500,000, city is 270. City didn't even get 12% in this last election. But hey, get that missing middle housing, everybody. You're welcome. It's what you asked for. Those of you that bothered asking. That's what's so weird. It's so weird to me. It's so crazy. I want to do that. I need to do that. I need to just start showing up to your school board meetings and county commission and city council meetings. Just show up, and as people are walking in, it's did you vote? Did you vote?
People don't tell you.
Did you vote? Because I feel like it's either 100% who bother showing up will have voted, unless it's some weird special crazy issue.
Yeah, so those past that was it.
Just a normal
people that would bother showing up probably have voted.
The most normal of meetings, I would say it's 90% actually voted, but then when the most outrageous of meetings, I think it's the inverse. I think 90% didn't vote. That would be my guess. I would guess that county commission meeting that I sat in for 6 hours for people to yell at county commission about Knox County Health Department, speaking of a state body that has no oversight by Knox County. Anyway, that all, I would guess that of the people that were so bold to go and speak their mind on the issue, that most of them didn't vote. If they did vote, they certainly didn't vote intelligently. Because if they vote intelligently, they'd realize that they're wasting their fucking time yelling at a county commissioner because it's not their job. But I want to yell at somebody, and it makes me feel better about myself. But it has no effectual change. But I still got to yell at somebody. Yay! Congratulations.
So it looks like in 2022, which was...
I'm 3 beers in, people, so if I'm way wrong, it's the beer's fault. But if I'm right, it's because I'm a genius.
You're not way wrong. It's in between. It looks like it was 128,000.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad. That's good. I mean, that's good for Knox County, which is still sad. 128,000. Maybe the 206 was the registered voters in Knox County. Maybe that's where I got the 206 from when I said that one.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know where to look for that one. I only know where this one.
Again, this is when Chris Davis will be like, "Why didn't you email?" I could do that. It's like, well, I was in the middle of the show, and if you're going to email immediately somehow magically. But like I said, that's what that would be my goal. Is like on Tuesday afternoon at 1:00. If you're in my Rolodex, you know that you might get a phone call from me somewhere in there, and that you're going to be on air. That would be my goal, and so that I could sit here and I can talk to everybody. I can talk about whatever. I can be like, hold on a second, Jennifer, we were talking about this thing. Can you help me with this? And you know when I call that's what's happening because it's 2:00 on a Tuesday. That would be so freaking cool. That'd be an amazing show.
So I say you've definitely got a few people in that wheelhouse of certain subjects.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be in the local politics. I mean, like, the easy
I'm
way,
saying you already have a few people.
Yeah, I certainly do.
Right.
I'm not rude enough to try to call them on a Friday night.
Right.
So my last election in my district, which is just District 2,
Why doesn't the whole county get to vote on you?
8,700.
Like they did in the city. Like
8,700 voted.
Of how many? We don't know how many.
I think there are around,
8,700. You got how many of 8,700?
5,000.
That's a good win.
Yeah.
That's a solid win. Very nice. Yeah, like 70, 60, 61%.
57.
Knox County math people, you're welcome. I mean, that's like, all right. So that's like, yeah. I mean, I think we I think you're right. I think going back to we're going to wrap this up here. Is I think you're right. Is I think I agree with you. I think that the school system. I think Ryswick. I need to talk to him at some point. I've not reached out to his office yet. I think Ryswick and the school board at large needs to speak at to correct terms that the state is dropping on us. I think with the partisanship, it's going to be hard to do because I think for some school board members, I'm not going to name names or anything, but I think that this is the beginning of a process for many, for a handful of them, and because we play in this party bullshit, that you piss off the party, you're kissing a future career in whatever next elected position you wanted to maybe look at. Goodbye. And so that is a net negative, and which tends me to lean into that we're not going to get that. And so I don't like, that's the problem. Like that's the problem is like, I want to talk solutions, and every solution I can come to is not viable, not because it isn't viable, but because the ability to get to it isn't. And I don't know how to get us there on that. And I mean, you're right. It's that 8,000 is that if you had 5,000 votes in your district, you should have got your ass kicked because your district should have put 30,000 votes up, and you got 60% of the 8,000 instead of 10% of the 50,000 that are actually in your district. That would be, and again, this isn't, yeah. And so that's the thing. So anyway, kudos, double kudos, triple kudos for running as independent. I'm really excited on the talking head journalism side of it. I'm really excited to see how that goes. I'm really curious to see how that goes, and not an endorsement in any way, but I really hope you win, because that gives me hope that there are people who don't care about the party and are paying attention to what the actual substance of the person is. Maybe I should rephrase that. It's not that I hope you win. It's that I hope that the election is based on the person who is running and not by the party they're affiliated with. I want to see that. That's what I think we need to see. And hey, Tim Burchett agrees with me on that. He told me so.
I think it'll be hard to tell if it's exactly that, because it'll also, I mean,
you have the incumbent vibe, which is a bonus. And you also get to a general and stuff. And
I'll have the incumbent vibe, and they'll have the money vibe. So,
but you're also going to have and I think District 2 is going to be a harder district to see a really good divide in, because I think District 2 is truly more of a mixed district, and so it's not like you would be.
I think it's probably more heavily Democratic.
I would say it leans right for sure. Courtney being a good example.
Left.
It leans left, right? Courtney being a good example, and I'm curious to watch that race as it rolls out too. But
the largest precinct that we had, that was also almost, it was largely Republican. That precinct was moved into District 8. So when that redistricting was done, and now I lived there, so I had to move to be able to run again.
As Gloria could tell you all about that. She doesn't have to move anymore. She can run anywhere. She can live anywhere in the state now. We'll see how that goes. But again, I think I think it's going to be interesting in the sense that it's who the Republicans get on that ballot or have on that ballot, and how much effort and energy they can put out. Because I could see it because even if it is even I agree that it is a left leaning district.
There's not a Republican running.
Oh, there isn't.
There's
I
another
need to double check my thing.
There's another independent running.
Okay.
Who I think leans more right.
Or maybe running as independent because they don't want to put the R next to
two independents, one leans each way, and then there's a Democrat running.
Okay, I need to dive deeper into my ballots because I'm apparently not as versed as I thought I was on it. But either way, it's interesting. I'm excited. Two independents makes it more fun too, because I think that is a. I just hope an independent wins anywhere. Like. I hope that people are quit paying attention to the R&D. I think that's the only way we're going to move past this grander issue any of the grander issues that we're talking about. I think if we move past this team game thing and get into who the people are, what they're actually trying to do, are they willing to hold themselves and others to account? I think that's all that matters. So we got to wrap this thing up. It's getting late. Listen, we've been watching For All Mankind on Apple. If you watched that one yet,
yeah,
it's really cool. Like, there's a bunch of different it's alternate history. So basically, the premise, the show starts with the moon landing, except it's the Russians, and then it's like this big drama space exploration thing on what would have happened if, and it goes from there. Like, there's been tons of different books that have done that kind of style of thing and on different topics or whatever. So. The season finale is released like an hour and a half ago, and I have, if we don't get wrapped and I don't get in there, she's watching without me, and that's not happening. So we got to get the news of the weird in and wrap this up. And many thanks to Jennifer Owen, but I'll do that again here in a second. Sam Lama, give me some news.
All right, we got they're not aliens. Peru officials seized two doll-like figures.
I know this story. This isn't new. That was like 6 months ago.
Oh, was it? Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Or was that maybe it was the Mexican one I'm getting mixed up with.
Well, I think they were like going to
Mexico
Mexico or something, yeah.
Yeah, you're trying to sell it to the Mexican government or something like that?
Yeah, but it was like paper mache and some metal, and there was like some human bones and some animal bones that were inside of it.
Weak ass conspiracy wannabe.
Got a man who claimed to be selling Queen Elizabeth II's walking stick is sentenced for fraud. Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, shit. So, Chinese chess player sues to reclaim title he lost for defecating in hotel bathtub.
Okay, yeah. Tell me more about that.
All right.
Poop always wins.
Yeah, poop always wins.
Jennifer, you can laugh out loud. You don't have to. You don't have to stop.
Okay. A competitor in chess says he sued the National Association in China for mental distress after he was stripped of a title for drinking alcohol and defecating in the bathtub of his hotel bathroom at a recent competition.
So he got drunk, shit in the tub, and they took his title away.
He doesn't deny what happened, but wrote in a civil complaint that this week that he drank a moderate amount of beer to celebrate his win with other chess players and had some food that caused stomach problems, and he couldn't make it to the toilet in time. Let's see here.
Well, I'm so confused. I don't know. China's China, I guess.
So investigation has found that Yan damaged hotel property.
Would we take Philip Fulmer's national championship away if he pooped in a tub one time? Who cares? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, what's his name? What's the linebacker we used to have back in the day? It was Gangsta. He killed somebody. He still got his national championship ring. Or got to keep it, rather. Ray Lewis? No, that's not Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis was out of killing. That was a different thing. Maybe, I don't know. There's some football player here at UT that killed somebody.
At UT?
I think so. He didn't kill him while he was here. He killed him afterwards.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, you don't take away stuff that they did in the past. Like, I mean, I guess they did. They took away OJ's Heisman. Like 30 years later, because he might have killed his wife. Maybe, probably, but maybe. All right, you got one more? Or are you going to call it? That's probably as good as we're going to get.
Yeah, let's call it on that.
All right. Jennifer, I really appreciate it. It was fun. gonna have to re-listen to this to remember what I said because we got deep in the weeds and all sorts of different stuff. It's good times. Anyway, Jennifer's running, but you got a while to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that until August. August General. Did you guys know that? Yeah, August General.
It's crazy.
The more you know.
And most people don't know that. I guarantee you that. So yeah, come late July, early voting starts. Jennifer will be on that ballot in late July. Maybe I don't know. When in August is it? It's August 1st. Okay, so yeah, mid-July. So go to your 4th of July parade, and then go out and early vote for Jennifer Owen in August or in late July. So yeah, we got time. Well, I'll have Jennifer back, and we'll do an actual candidate episode where I talk more questions that are specifically about the job she was asking you to elect her for. We're almost agreement at gmail.com. You find us on Facebook, you find us on Twitter, and you find us on YouTube. As mentioned earlier, I did a whole interview segment with the Compass guys today. CompassKnox.com is their website, the Compass Points podcast. If you're interested in what's going on with the THCA law, there's the changes in there. There's a bit on that, so you check them out too. Like, friend, share, follow us. Like, friend, share, follow them. Check out Jennifer Owen. She's got plenty of stuff going on in the next little bit. And I appreciate Jennifer Owen for who she is and what she does for us in Knox County. And we will call it a night. We'll do another show soon. And I got Becky Massey coming up, everybody. So we'll talk to Becky Massey. She's going to not like me this time. She usually does. So anyway.